Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Justin Howell, J. Howell Custom Home Builder, and we're gonna take a look at beams today. What we're looking at today are just a glimpse of the different types of beams that are available for residential application. So just to jump right in, the beams above me that are in this house are a faux beam. So they're made out of real wood, so real solid wood, but they're faux or a U-beam. They're hollow. It looks just like this, where it's 3 pieces of solid wood put together, mitered. You can see the miter detail there. Mitered together, glued together, and then applied up to the ceiling on a cleat and screwed into that cleat. I prefer a faux beam or a U-beam for most applications, especially when it's not structural, because this type of wood or material has a tendency not to move or crack. So it's a lot more stable over the seasons or even over a longer time period. Some items to consider when we're looking at beams are, one, of course, the wood species, right? Is it Doug fir, like this particular beam? Or is it something like this beam, another U-beam, different size? This is an alder, so it's got a little bit more knots in it. It's a different species. It takes stain differently than the Doug fir does. Another item to look at here, are we looking for an eased edge? Does it have a soft edge like this one does? Or is there any distressing or stain details? Maybe it's wire brushed to bring out the deeper grain and to make it look a little bit more weathered. So there's a lot that goes into that. What's nice about a faux beam is we can do all of those type of finishes. We're not restricted by any type of wood species in particular. And on top of that, typically we can do it at a better price point because overall the material is less expensive, easier to install. A faux beam like this or a U-beam is really, it's not for every application, especially when we start to talk about structural applications of beams. Some beams are both aesthetic and structural. They do 2 jobs. And this obviously would not be a structural component of a home. It's purely an aesthetic, and it is just foam. So maybe there is a structural component that could live inside of this beam, and then we just cover the outside of that structural component with something like this, so it looks maybe more traditional. In that regard, we could maybe use a structural component like an LVL, a laminated veneer lumber or strand lumber, something of that nature. We could put that in as a less expensive structural component, and then use a less expensive U-beam with less expensive materials to then encase that. For this particular project, Valley View, and the beams that we've installed in this house, this is an alder. You can tell we have a square edge, no distress, and then stain to match. So we went through a couple different options for the homeowners with the interior designer to pick out this particular stain. But as far as beam layout, we were very intentional about how we designed the beams in this house. We have our rafter beams that go up to our ridge beam and meet there. So ridge beam is the larger beam in the center, and then our rafter beams that come down. The intent and design here is, one, to kind of give interest to this ceiling as it's vaulted, right? It goes up to the center, make you look up, look at it. And then as we come in through the entryway, you look directly down this rafter that goes to this exaggerated large brick fireplace, which then leads you straight out to the view of the valley below. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you learned a little bit about beams and the application of beams and how we use them here on this project. As always, thanks for joining us today, and please like and subscribe.